Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for being with us. I've had the opportunity, the privilege really of interviewing all of the gentlemen on this stage in the past as well, more than on one occasion for most of them. And I think they represent some of the best in industry. Chandrajit Banerjee is somebody I've interacted more than the others. The Confederation of Indian Industry has been wonderful with us at NDTV, and it's great to have this panel, which represents not just CII, but some of the finest voices in India on this topic. GST 2.0 is a revolution. How does it impact different sectors? That's what we really want to look at today. Dr. Trehan, I must come to you first. As you sip that glass of water, there's that sin tax, right? For you as a doctor, that must be incredibly important. The fact that we have a sin tax, tobacco products are taxed very heavily. It saves lives.
So there are actually three categories in which you can classify or break it down. First is the fact that removing GST on insurance premium, which was 18%, made the insurance premiums almost unaffordable at the level that you want it to be. Because when you want to buy a plan which gives you good security for you and your family, 18% on top of that was a killer. So I think that's a great job the government has done in recognizing, and it'll help public at large. The second thing that's happened is that there are some life-saving drugs that have been put to zero, mainly also cancer drugs, which was, as it is the newer cancer drugs are expensive. And GST on top of that was also a very big burden for patients who already are bearing the burden of a very sort of deadly disease and also being able to afford it. So that's the second big benefit. The third is or it's part of that is the pharmaceutical industry. So it's all been brought down from 12%, 18% to 5%. That also will be a big relief to be able to afford treatment. On the other hand, for the providers, our input costs will be reduced because most of our inputs, like consumables, like medtech stuff, attracted 12 to 18%, and it's all been brought down to 5%. So these are all things that have really helped our sector. Now it'll make it more affordable. We can pass on the savings in the consumables to the public at large. So I think from all fronts, this has been a very favorable move by the GST Council. I'm sure the finance minister, the prime minister, and all that have had a major role to play in it. And I think it's a big relief to the public. So it's a public-facing sort of change in policy.
No,
what has not happened, which is still on the agenda, is that we don't get a set-off for whatever we pay at GST. That is one part which we have been actually putting forward to the government, that would also give us more relief, and we can make delivery cheaper. The whole idea is whatever benefit we get, we should pass it on to the public. So that has not happened yet. So we are stuck between the fact that we do pay GST, although it's going to be reduced now, the burden, but we still don't. And the other thing that's important is that any room more than 5,000 rupees attracts GST.
Right.
5% though. So that also is an added burden on the public. So I think these are the two things left which can be actually moderated, and then people will really benefit from a lower cost of healthcare.
No, but in terms, Dr. Trehan, of passing on the benefits to people who, for example, visit your hospital in rooms beneath a certain price point, is there any statistic that you can share with us? I mean, for a hospitalization of X period, the average room cost would come down by X amount, or the average cost of treatment, and you can name one of the treatments, might come down to this extent. Is it possible to do that?
The back of the envelope calculation would say somewhere around 5 to 7%.
Across what?
Across the room rents and also in the consumables. So that would be helpful, no question about that. But the actual calculation is yet to happen because we don't know what the other end is going to do, the supply side is going to do to us. So once the supply side settles down, then we can actually calculate and pass on the benefits to the public. That's the intention. And I think we should all, as providers, live up to that intention.
Mr. Bhimani, for the longest time, GST has been meant to be, or the ideal was one nation, one tax. It didn't really happen that way. It was a complex web. Compliance was an issue. We've now come down to two slabs. To what extent does that help the entire compliance structure? Do you believe it's that simplicity or the relative ease which exists now as opposed to the past, which might be one of the game changers in this?
Yeah. No, thanks, Vishnu. I would just say differently. When GST got passed in 2017, I think it was a very far-reaching change, and it was one nation, one tax. If you looked at it before that, it was completely broken. So it was one nation, one tax. I think India was venturing into something new at that time. You also had to give assurances to states that you were taking away their autonomy, so give them confidence that you will be able to collect revenue. So the government was rightly conservative, and also they were worried that credits will be misutilized or invoices will be there. So I think lots of controls were put in place, and the tax sort of rates was on the higher side. Having said that, over a period of last 7, 8 years, the revenue neutral rate has come down by 3 to 4%. And so I would still say that GST is one of the most biggest tax reforms that happened in 2017. And similar to that, I think what the government has done this time is very path-breaking. I think reducing the rates to the extent, the manner in which it has been done, the speed at which it has been done, and the smoothness with which they have done it, and the thought process behind it is really fantastic. So I think we must give compliment to the government. It's not an easy change, especially when the change is not just one government. You have to include a lot of state governments. You have to bring them and get their consent as well, and it was done unanimously. So I think we must give credit both to the central government, definitely, for pulling this off, but also for the state government. Compliance disputes were mainly of 2 or 3 kinds. One of them was around classification, because we had a 4-tiered structure. I think the government has now come up with a 2-tiered structure, where they very clearly defined the principles of what applies to 5% and what applies to 18%. And also a very small list of goods which are in 40%. So I think to that extent, as far as classification disputes are concerned, they will come down significantly. I think they've made the registration process much easier. There is also a very, for a lot of areas, you can get provisional credit. So earlier you had blocked input credit, but that in many cases now has been unlocked, at least to the extent of almost 90%. So that is easy. But there are some areas which may not have any financial impact, but procedurally, at some stage, I think it will be good if the government can look at it. And one of them being obviously decriminalization. I think we must look at that, because that often is not the intent of the government, but the way it's applied on the ground. Sometimes it does create challenges, especially for MSMEs. And secondly, another area which is not easy is the number of audits that are done. So if you're operating, if a company is operating in 10 different states, for the same year, 10 different audits happen. And you may have a situation, or in many cases you do have a situation, where different people take different interpretations. Now, those interpretations will get much lesser, because classification disputes will get much lesser. But if we can come to a point where there is 1 or 2 audits, then I think it will make life much, much more easier. And there is an SOP which the central government has already issued, on the basis of which audits are done. So you suddenly don't have some extravagant notices. But the basis of a lot of this was classification disputes. So in many ways, the government has done a great job of eliminating that and laying down very simple principles on the basis of where 5% and where 18% will be applied.
Mr. Banerjee, how does GST 2.0 compare with, let's say, global best practices?
We have got much closer to the best in the globe. we have two-tier now, and that's what you see the developed nations do. If more mature economies practice that, we will move towards perhaps even a more streamlined fashion. Rajiv was talking about a lesser burden of compliances. That also actually is a very, very important subject, and that compares so strongly with global benchmarks. And today, if India is looked upon as a investment destination, one of the things that one would look at is how do you resolve disputes, and this dispute resolution mechanism which has come in is going to be a great, again, not only compares with the best of global benchmarks, but it is going to be something which will trigger a lot in terms of inward investments, attraction towards India. The other, global benchmark that you see that's very critical to appreciate is how you are creating a sort of a trust-based sort of a economy. And that shows maturity in the economy, that shows a two-way system working, and I think that's again a very, very critical feature of GST 2.0. Going forward, I would think that we see more, more of these trickling into other areas of work. So today it is taxation. 8 years ago, we saw GST 2.0 come in. So, and more of trust even within the states of India and the center. That's also a very critical thing, and that's also putting it at global benchmark, because that's going to be very critical for India to establish not only between the consumer and the, or the businesses and the government, but also within the system to take forward other reforms. So, sure. Be it labor, be it land, and so on and so forth. So we are really looking at how a mature Indian economy is getting into.
Mr. Kambata, I think everybody over here has grown up on Rasna at some stage or the other. And sort of the original Rasna man over here with us. Aerated drinks, of course, have now been taxed up. Does that benefit the Rasna manufacturer, the Rasna king, as it were? And have your input costs actually likely gone down as a result of all of this?
See, I'll take it in three parts. Number one is, I think I should congratulate the whole government, all associations. We are all wanting this to happen, and this has happened. I think it's a big ticket reform. And I should congratulate the Prime Minister especially, because when we are looking at India at the global stage, we have to make India a consumer market, and we have to rely on ourselves. And honestly speaking, we need everybody to have a toffee, everybody to have a soft drink, and this move actually enables that. And on behalf of industry, I think the first commitment we should be making, and on a platform like this, is that we pledge to pass every bit and paisa to the consumer. I think that is what we owe to your consumers who are probably going to watch this show. Are they really going to pass on, or are they going to pocket it? And let me tell you, all people, at least I have met, we are fully committed to passing every naya paisa, maybe more, to the consumer.
That's why I was asking Dr. Trehan that same question.
Yeah, we want that big Diwali dhamaka, because I'll tell you why we want it. Not because of any law of anti-profiteering. No, not because of that. Industry knows how to get around laws. We are good consultants for that. Because we do believe, honestly, because we do believe that getting the prices down will get more consumers to buy our products, and we need that India. We don't want to rely on a foreigner. We want that India to grow. India can be 4 Americas put together, if you ask me, if it grows. So that's why we are going to invest. Now, coming to the second question is, there are few anomalies there. Now, some people will say, if you have juice with carbonation, the tax is this, soft drink. But I think this is something in progress. I'm sure the government will look at it. I'm also sure that government will understand that if you put something at a higher tax, doesn't mean consumption goes down. Just look at alcohol. It has a higher tax, but people still consume. So I think somehow or the other, I don't think taxation can be used as a consumer preference tool or to change consumer preferences. There are better ways to do it, I believe, but that's a separate issue altogether. Third point, which is more important, which I personally believe, is that in the food category, almost everything is at 5. Hardly anything is at 80. So I think it is a very big move, because mostly there were a lot of classification disputes. For example, toffee is 80. You put chocolate coating on top is 28. Yeah. And if you just have a hard-boiled candy, it is 5. Same for popcorn, same for idli mix. Now all that is gone. I think it's big cheers. More than the tax, imagine unnecessary show cause notices, unnecessary classification disputes. As Rajiv mentioned, all that is gone, which is, I think, for us, a very big news. Going forward, what is required? I think immediately going forward required is that I think traders are pretty confused what to do. So we need clear FAQs which are binding so that we know all what to pass on by when. We need the GST notification to come in very quickly. And we need clarity on this anti-profiteering law. I personally believe it should not lead to more curbs unnecessary. It should be made simple that, okay, at a profit and loss level, you have to pass on. We can audit in the financial year profit. It should not be SKU-wise. Clarity should be given quickly that if we don't want to reduce the price and give more value, for example, in small packs, we can still do that. So I think these are the type of things required, but I'm very sure the government, when I'm talking, is also working towards it. Last thing I would like to say through your platform is it is very important for consumers to understand that the message is not only what the Prime Minister wants to give is get more consumerism, but get more Swadeshi. And being something I always have been talking of, Make in India, I think it is important that we see this as that how do we not only consume more products, but how do we consume more Indian products? And this is something which I think on platforms like this I should be talking. If the Prime Minister is saying, the Minister is saying, the industry also should say, consume more Indian, be Indian, buy more Rasla.
But the flip argument of that is those companies which actually, for example, in aerated drinks, may not be Indian in origin, but they employ lakhs of Indians.
I do believe they are Indians also. In my definition of Indians, once I went to a committee and I was asked, what is made in India? I said, anything which is a manufacturing in India.
So you're saying don't buy that Indian product, buy your Indian product.
It is the Indian version is in my mind, honestly. Okay. I don't believe, or you ask me, otherwise I export to 50 countries. Imagine if 50 countries talk thinking like this, then they won't buy me, I'll be in more trouble. I've got more exports going. So I didn't mean that. I said, we sell made in India stuff. For me, every brand made in India is Indian, honestly. Right. That, let me clarify this very clearly. Okay. That is what it should be. Sure. You add value in India, don't just pack in India. Add value in India and you are Indian in my mind.
Mr. Bhimani, I think there was an important point over there on profit. Profit is at the heart of business. And there's nothing wrong with profit. We're a free market economy. But then there's profiteering and the concern that some of the benefits out of GST 2.0 will not be passed down. How does one balance the goal of business to profit and the government's concerns about profiteering?
Yeah. So, Vishnu, I think from CII standpoint, I think we've been very clear and we have committed to the government also on behalf of all members of CII that any benefit that accrues because of the change in the GST rate. And this has been a long-standing request that CII has been making to the government. And we understand that it's a big fiscal call for the government also to take this step. That we would want to assure that at least the communication that we are making to all the members, and as Piyush also mentioned, I think the idea is that any profits that you make because of the reduction in GST will be passed on. And I think you're already seeing some evidence of that in the automobile sector. Now, in some sectors, it may not be that straightforward to compute because of the inverted duty structures. So you know of some of the sectors where even though the duty rates have been reduced, may have been reduced from 18% to 5% or from 12% to 5%, but the accumulated tax credit may be 7, 8%, 9%, 12%. So there is a dilemma in industry to say, what's the extent that you can pass?
Yep.
I mean, you've heard, I think the most vociferous case has been the life insurance industry, for example, where for retail sectors, health and others, the duty has been reduced to, GST rate has been reduced to 0%. But they have input credit. I think Dr. Trehan also mentioned some of that also happens in the healthcare sector. So I think that's a dilemma that one has to do. And the third is that there is nothing wrong with profits. I don't think industry is saying that there is anything wrong with profits. I don't think government is saying anything wrong with profits. But this, in today's India, in this time, this law has been enacted. I think the government is also very keen. There is a rise in demand. There is a rise in greater economic activity in India. And the business and industry will gain much more with greater consumption, greater urban, greater rural consumption, if there is greater sales momentum in the country. So I think it's not bad for business. It's not business is sacrificing. This is good for government. This is good for country. This is good for citizens. This is good for business.
Mr. Banerjee, let's look at this from a somewhat more macro standpoint. MSMEs clearly gained from this. Could you spell out how, and in terms of job creation, how could GST 2.0 be a game changer?
So a couple of quick points. One is if you see majority of the sectors that would benefit are labor-intensive sectors, be it textiles, be it many others. And they are all, these labor-intensive sectors are primarily small and mid-sized companies. So obviously the benefit goes a lot to them. Second, very critical is the ease of compliance. And I think MSMEs are one of the most biggest, one of the biggest challenges of the MSMEs are the type of paperwork that they had to do. I think today we really see a lot of compliance issues coming up, being addressed in the GST 2.0. The third part, which is again very important from the small companies' point of view, is you see a lot which is being given to the hands of the consumer, right? And these are consumer products again. And these are again, much of it is again going to the MSME sector. And that's again going to be a great boost for the MSME. And last, if I can say that, we talked about the dispute resolution mechanism. Again, MSMEs can't deal with such complex regulatory systems. MSME needs easier way of exchanging or rather filling up. So that these ease of sort of filling up taxation, ease of doing GST would obviously be able to make them focus more on a business rather than compliances, and so that these are great enablers for the MSME sector.
Dr. Trehan, when we started, you raised that very important point on how insurance premiums, will be much cheaper now. That the fact that GST has gone down for all sorts of insurance is huge. But do you believe that there needs to be a mindset in the country for people who have savings to actually invest in insurance? Do you believe that that is a challenge which somehow or the other needs to be overcome? It's not just enough to say that you're not going to be taxed on it. There has to be an understanding and a willingness to spend the money you've saved in investing in insurance.
That realization, actually, if you go by the numbers, in the last 5 years, the insurance percentage of people insured by private insurance companies and even GIC companies, that's the government insurance companies, has gone up from 2% to now 12 to 15%. So yes, the recognition that if you can afford it, you should actually create a safety net for yourself. I think that realization is there already. Also, you must understand, towards the universal healthcare for every Indian who's stands on the soil of India, this Ayushman has been a big boost for them. So affordability for 500 million people eventually, it may not have reached yet, but 500 million people safety net, that by itself adds a lot of comfort to the public. Then you lay on top of that the government schemes, and then you lay on top of that private insurance. So you can say that very large proportion, about 80% of our population has now come in the safety net, which was till 5 years ago, when Ayushman was announced, it was dismal that 500 million people were totally out of the net, and they were actually, what the statistics was, that the cost of their health care was driving 2 to 4% of the people from above poverty line to below poverty line every year. So you know that was a real emergency, and we have all contributed in our own way to make Ayushman successful. The second thing is, when you talk about employment, we need 1.8 million more beds, hospital beds in this country, to be able to reach even the medium level of healthcare that we can provide or our people deserve. Now, the question really is, what has happened today, we've always said, we can pass on the cost to the public because it's important that they come in the safety net. The second thing is that we need to we are already the cheapest healthcare system in the world. So we need to continue this, and all the help that can come will only help the public.
Dr. Trehan, give us a reality check, and I'm asking you this question deliberately. To those who say, who is the government to decide that they should tax us for the tobacco that we consume? Because there are many who say that it's my choice, therefore why should the government interfere with my life?
No, you know, that's, I think it's a warped thinking. You know it's going to hurt you. You know you have got addicted to it, so you pay for it. And why not? So the point is that there are two parts to it. One is we know that it's not good for anybody. The other part is that, yes, the government has the right to tax, try to discourage them. But what has happened is it's not discouraged people. No matter, I mean, you look at taxes here, 40%, you look at what's happening in the world. A pack of cigarettes in US is costing $10, $12 a pack, up from $2. But people are still buying, and smoking amongst the younger generation is only on the rise. So I don't know what the right formula is, but we keep telling people all the time, tobacco in any form is absolutely a no-no, no question.
Mr. Kambata, in terms of what we've seen among states in the country who've been so bitterly divided on accepting GST 1, they've had so many problems, they've had so many concerns. The fact that there has been relative acceptance of everything thus far, how is that critical in going forward and seeing this through?
See, first let us admit, GST 1 was better than VAT, for sure. VAT was like 20, 30 assessments. So let us put it this way. The GST 1 was also better than VAT. GST 2 definitely is going to be better than VAT, than GST 1. And I somehow believe we are on the right track. We are trying to make India a consuming economy. The per capita consumption, if the best penetrated food category today is still 20 and 30%. I will give you one just figure. Imagine what can happen if, say, even 80, 90% penetration, that one can get, the others are at 5 and 7. If they go to 30 and 40, we are talking of 3 times, 4 times the turnover of most Indian companies to happen in a very short time. Yeah. And I somehow believe that food is somewhere where I think this has been more benefit than any other sector, because you can directly see the benefit to the consumer can see the benefit quickly. These are all fast moving goods. So I definitely see this is going to catalyze the industry's growth, and on employment, definitely it will help the agriculturist also get a better price, because we have empirical data to prove that the more food is processed, the farmer definitely realizes a better price for the crop. So forget the employment for the industry people. In my industry, probably 500 people are there. But look at the 5,000 farmers back who are supplying to me. Look at their livelihood, how it is improved when I buy from them at a better rate they can ever get from the mandi, and definitely better than what they throw on the street. So in one go, the consumer gets a better price, employment increases, the farmer gets a better price, and we become an economy more powerful than any other economy in the world. So I think it is the combination of all you have to see together as one package. And sure. I believe this is a step towards that. This is the biggest business reform I have seen in the last few years, to be very frank. That's what it says. And this is the biggest business reform. There is no other bigger business reform than this. And we should once again all thank the government for the same.
Mr. Bhimani, refund delays has been an issue in the past. There is greater digitalization now in GST 2.0. Do you believe that the entire issue of refunds across, which impact different sectors in different ways, that's been addressed to a large extent?
Yeah, I think to some extent it has been addressed, Vishnu. There is this concept of provisional refunds, which was earlier available only in case of exports or zero-rated products. Now, I think if you have any inverted duty structure, you will get provisional refunds almost to 90%, except in case of capital goods or where you're consuming services, or if you have a product that has got zero GST. So I would say the only thing that you could argue is on capital goods or on services. If you're consuming, you will not get credits for that. But this is a very significant shift from what has happened in the past years. And we also have to remember when we look at these, and obviously a lot of people from industry on transition provisions, on inverted duty structures are making representations. But I think the government also has to balance its books. they also have to keep states together. And as we all know, the states' balance sheets are very stretched. And one of the key areas of income for states is GST. I think they have very other, they don't have that many areas for collecting revenues. So if you balance all that, I think this is a very significant shift as compared to where we were earlier. Does it mean that everything comes through? The answer is no. But substantial part, at least that which was locked up because of inverted duty structures of goods, I think that gets addressed, minus capital goods. I think that gets addressed.
Mr. Banerjee, a final question to you. The concern of states has always been that we are going to sustain losses, at least in the interim run. What we gain in the long term doesn't take away necessarily from the pain we feel now. How does one look at that pain concern presently in the hope that consumption rises to the point that this becomes profitable for states going forward?
What I mentioned in the beginning, which I come back to that, is we have to see the long run. We'll have to look at a long-term picture of the Indian economy becoming much more matured than what it is today. We have come a long way. Now, obviously, wherever we have seen taxes go down, at the end of the day, we've seen revenue increasing. Demand picking up, profits going up, consumers benefiting. So it's an all-round benefit. And I don't think today the states, if you really look at the type of competition that the states are having in terms of drawing in more investments than the other, there is, while there will be noise, we are a democracy, and there will be noise, and everybody would think that there is a short-term gain to be looked at. But I think the maths are pretty clear, and we do look at a strong uptick in both revenues as well as investment and demand.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. And it's just so wonderful to get this very nuanced sort of expression or understanding of the various sectors which all of these gentlemen, in a sense, represent. Mr. Banerjee represents all of the sectors. But thank you very much for being with us. We've got the Finance Minister of India, Nirmala Sitharaman, who's on her way and should be with us very, very soon. But ultimately, this is all about a resurgent India. It is about the incredible opportunity that consumption leaves us with in terms of achieving our broader economic vision. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.